The final four teams, Liverpool versus Barsa and Spurs versus Ajax. Two pretty damn well balanced semis that you could make a claim for any of the teams to go through. So yeah, this will be a headache, and the chances of it ending with me going 0 for 2 are extremely high. Hey, I'm Adrian, by the way, and before we get into Spurs versus Ajax, I just want to give a massive thank you to our sponsor, OneFootball. And we're talking about the app here, the best football app out there, that allows you to custom tailor your newsfeed to the players and competitions that you care about, watch highlights, get breaking news faster than any other app, access to live match tickers, and so much more. So, support me by supporting them by claiming your free download on iOS or Android from the link in the description below. Okay, so as alluded to a second ago, we'll start with Tottenham versus Ajax, and isn't it nice to know that one of these teams will end up in the Champions League final? I know that will be an emphatic nope from all the Arsenal fans out there. But anyways, Tottenham haven't had an easy run to get to this point at all. In the group stage, they had to go toe-to-toe with Barcelona and Inter, the latter of which they just pipped into second place. Not to mention they also played against Ajax's rivals PSV, of which they drew the first match 2-2 in the Netherlands, and Spurs edged PSV 2-1 in London thanks to a late brace from Harry Kane. Then, of course, Spurs dealt with Bundesliga hopefuls Borussia Dortmund quite handily, beating them 4-0 on aggregate in the round of 16 before they were handed the challenge of taking on another league hopeful, Manchester City, in the quarterfinals. Now, of course, it was extremely close in the end for them as Spurs advanced on away goals, 4-4 there, and they were just inches from being eliminated. God, that must have been one of the most horrible spans of a few minutes or a minute and 30 seconds ever for City fans. Well, okay, maybe not ever. That's being hyperbolic because I know some smartass will hit me up with a, well, actually, it was far worse back when blah, 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 blah in the comments. Now, the last month and a bit haven't been the greatest for Tottenham, with a couple losses against City, though obviously one of those was in the Champions League and they still advanced, so they won't care about that loss too much at all, but they still leaked 4 goals. And that isn't great when you leak 4 goals in one match. Then, of course, a loss to Liverpool, which there's no shame in, really, besides the fashion in which they lost it. Southampton got the better of them, Chelsea, Burnley, etc. So you couldn't say that this is Pochettino's strongest season domestically, but all things considered, it's been against them in a few different ways. They had big injuries to key guys like Harry Kane, who's again out. Dele has had his fair share of absences alongside Son, who, by the way, has emerged as Tottenham's most important player this season, and many, many more injuries. Plus, they didn't spend a single penny during the transfer window. They spent 2/3 of their season at Wembley, their adopted home, etc. So it's impressive that they've made it this far. Equally impressive this season, Ajax and their incredible run in the Champions League. But domestically, they're killing it as well, as Erik ten Hag's rise has really been something to watch. After managing Bayern Munich's second team, he went to Utrecht, where he revolutionized the team, taking them up to 5th in his first season and 4th in his second. His tactics were eye-catching, really, as he made Utrecht one of the best teams outside of the classic big boys. And that was enough for Ajax to sign him up. Now, his season hasn't been perfect, with notable losses like a 3-0 to PSV, a 6-2 versus Feyenoord, but other than that, Ajax has been quite good under Ten Hag and has been only getting better and better since mid-March. Part of their success is, of course, thanks to their famed academy, some of the players they have coming through there, but bringing in Tadic for 10 million and utilizing him as a striker was an absolute masterstroke. He's now been involved in 50 goals across all competitions, as was bringing in Daley Blind, typically deployed as a midfielder or fullback at times in the past, but used as a center back to great success for Ajax. And because of that, as of the making of this video on April 24th, 2019, they've rocketed to the top of the Eredivisie and will play in the KNVB final against Willem on May 5th, the KNVB Cup, I should say. Their Champions League run has been great as well. Sure, they didn't have much competition for second place in their group because Ajax was bad, that's Ajax, Athens, and Benfica had Rui Vitória as their manager, aka Pre-Lage Benfica, so we weren't doing anything there. Well, I mean, I guess we did draw them at home, so there's that. But other than that, they were worthy of going through in second, tying Bayern on both occasions and advancing to take on Real Madrid. Their worst performance of their Champions League campaign so far came at home to Real Madrid, in which they lost 2-1. And in fact, you could argue that Ajax has been better away in the Champions League than they have been at home. 3 wins, 2 draws, and a loss at home. 3 wins and 2 draws away. They're unbeaten in their last 8 away matches in the UCL if you include their qualifiers. They had that big win against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, then that big win away to Juve, where in both matches, their interplay in the attack and their transitions from defense to attack were just stunning. I'm sure you've seen some of their viral videos of their interplay against Juventus, in which they were just passing circles around them with little flicks and back heels and tricks all the way down the pitch. So it's safe to say that this should be a great matchup. For the first time in the knockout rounds, Ajax will be playing the first leg away, playing at Tottenham's new stadium, where they have a 100% win record so far from the 4 matches they played there, while, like I said, Ajax are undefeated in their last 8 matches away in the Champions League. Asterisk there, remember, that's including qualifiers. Spurs will be without Heung-min Son in the first leg, which is a massive loss to their attack, so the onus will fall on Llorente or Moura in the forward positions. Ajax, no suspensions, relatively clean bill of health, and I think they'll provide Spurs with their first points dropped at their new stadium. In fact, I think they'll beat them in London, and Son's return will make things scary back in Amsterdam, but Ajax will make it through to the final in my opinion. 4-3 on aggregate, 2-1 Ajax in London, and a 2-2 draw in Amsterdam. It's going to be a hairy one for them though. It's going to be stressful for the Ajax fans. And I know people are going to say, LOL, you always bet against Spurs, you must hate them. And remember, just because I haven't predicted they would win doesn't mean I dislike them. It's strictly based on sporting reasons. I was totally wrong with the Dortmund prediction, was pretty close with the City one, but ultimately wrong again. And hell, I could be wrong about them one more time. We'll see. There's just something about this Ajax team that makes them really hard to look past for me. They have a lot of momentum, they have a lot of skill, and they have an extremely talented manager. Alright, Liverpool versus Barcelona now, and we'll start with the former. Liverpool are having a pretty solid season so far in the Premier League. They already have 88 points, the most they've ever attained in the Premier League era. Yet, if Man City defeated United on April 24th, today, then that means 88 points will only be good enough for second place with 3 matches to go. It's an insane title race in the Premier League. Haven't had teams this good contending for it in a long time. Just for comparison purposes, a little side note here, when Leicester City won the Premier League, they only had 81 points. Liverpool's on 88 with 3 to go. That's crazy. In the cup competitions, they haven't done great, but under Jurgen Klopp, they've managed to reach their 2nd consecutive Champions League semi-final, which is nothing to sneeze at, man, especially when you consider the fact that it wasn't always a sure thing they would make it out of their extremely tough group, where they couldn't get a single win on the road. In fact, they couldn't get a draw while they were away either in the Champions League, losing to Red Star, PSG, and Napoli. But in the round of 16 against Bayern Munich, they smashed that habit with a convincing 3-1 victory, and in the rematch against FC Porto in the quarterfinals, they smashed them again, winning 6-1 on aggregate. Gotta say though, Porto had some calls that they didn't get across the 2 legs that could have made a difference, but only a difference in the scoreline alone, in my opinion. They wouldn't have affected the outcome in the end, especially when you have Marega up front doing the absolute most to not score, which was unfortunate for Porto because he put himself in good positions, but his finishing was just trash. After he started the Champions League so well, too. So, how does this Liverpool team compare to that of last season's? Well, last season they were smash and grab and put 4 past you in 4 minutes type thing, while they would also concede 2 along the way due to their sometimes naive defending or Loris Karius just being himself. It was extremely exciting to watch, but you knew that they would leak a goal or 2. This season, however, with Van Dijk having fully established himself and with a world-class shot stopper in Alisson behind the back line, Liverpool's defense has improved massively. And that's without mentioning how well, Alexander-Arnold is playing, both going forward and defensively. And of course, Andy Robertson, who you could make an argument for him being the best left back in the world right now. Or at least one of them. Their midfield, I'd say it's better than last season, just slightly, especially with Fabinho coming into form in the latter half of this season. Wijnaldum is one of my favorite midfielders in the world. Keita is hot and cold, but talented. Henderson is solid. Milner, he'll always put in a good shift for you, etc. So I think their midfield's a bit better than last season. Now, Liverpool's attack, at different points throughout this season, it felt like just one of their Mercurial 3 would be in form. Salah has famously struggled to reach the heights of last season, but I mean, come on. For anyone who isn't Ronaldo or Messi, it's pretty rare to have consecutive seasons like that. Despite that, he's been good lately, I thought. Final ball can be suspect at times and can be guilty of forcing things, but generally pretty damn good, and he instills fear in his opponents still. Firmino has struggled to reach the heights he did last year as well, at least in the Champions League, but he's still been pretty decent besides missing some major sitters. Mane has been the most dangerous of the three, at least the most consistent of the three, which is funny because he still blows some big chances once in a while, even when he's at his most dangerous and most in form. Now, Barcelona on the other hand, they of course are leading La Liga quite handily, where in this moment of filming, they have a 12-point lead over Atletico, having played one more match than them. As mentioned earlier, they were in that tough group with Inter, PSV, and fellow semi-finalists Tottenham, but they made relatively easy work of it, qualifying for the knockout rounds before they'd even played all of their group stage matches. A massive part of their success has been down to Messi, who scored 10 goals and assisted 3. So of the 22 goals Barcelona have scored, that's not including own goals, he's been involved in 13 of them. 60% or 59.09% for those sticklers out there. Again, Luis Suarez is having a tough time finding goals in the Champions League. None so far, as he only scored 1 last season, but he does have a team leading 4 assists in the Champions League. And speaking of having a tough time, that's a good way of describing Coutinho's time, not only this season, but in general at Barcelona. Remember how great he was at the World Cup? He's had a hard time finding that form again, let alone his Liverpool form. So I'll be interested to see if he could do it against his former club, back at Anfield. I've thought that he's been better lately, but he's still not at Liverpool Coutinho levels yet. But anyway, I like Barcelona's midfield with the likes of Arthur, Busquets, and Rakitic, though Alenya put in a great shift against Alaves this week, and in general has shown a ton of promise, so I'm interested to see if Valverde will actually give him the call. Barcelona's backline is good, though when Piqué isn't there, Umtiti and Langelet can look shocking at times. I think Semedo has been better lately. Alba is world class, and Ter Stegen is one of the best keepers in the world without a shadow of the doubt. He and Oblak are fighting for best keeper in the world. Easy. So, Barca beat United comfortably, putting 4 past them over the 2 legs. But then again, Everton put 4 past United in just 90 minutes. Just like Liverpool provided some reason to doubt them in the Champions League with their shitty away form, I feel like this Barcelona team isn't at the standard that we've come to expect. In fact, since probably Enrique's departure, Barcelona hasn't been up to standard, and Messi's performances have helped to hide some somewhat lackluster stretches from Barcelona over the last few seasons. Sometimes it feels like if Messi doesn't show up, or if Messi is unable to produce a moment of magic, then it's going to be a massive labor for the rest of the attack to produce something. Whereas with Liverpool, you get the feeling that the load is shared a little bit more. When one guy is off, another guy's on. And now you have the massive aerial threat as well from Van Dijk from set pieces, which is going to be tough for Barcelona to deal with. Well, I mean, throw Piqué on them and you have a pretty good fight. I'm fairly sold on Liverpool right now. They seem like the more solid team at this point, having not lost since early January. And they've also won their last 9 matches in a row. And I mean, to be fair though, Barcelona hasn't lost since January either. But it's the manner in which Liverpool are winning some of these games. Not all of them convincing, but that's just it. It seems like there's something otherworldly pushing them forward at times. I'm thinking of the match against Tottenham, the late goal against Fulham, the whack goal against Everton that Pickford made a mess of. Matches like that where you think they're out and something falls from the heavens for them. You need that kind of luck to be successful. Just as often, though, it seems like something falls from the heavens for Barcelona, often through the work of Lionel Messi. Look at the game against Villarreal recently, where his free kick then set the stage for Suarez's equalizer after Villarreal had a man sent off. Messi makes things extremely hard to predict, one of those players that plucks goals from thin air and can turn a tie on its head just like that. I was talking to my friend about this one, sup Russ, and he mentioned how he doesn't think that Barcelona has met a team of the caliber of Liverpool yet this season, and I 100% agree with that. Nobody in Spain has provided the kind of challenge that Liverpool will. It's a bit of off-season in La Liga, in my opinion. They aren't strong as usual. Lyon isn't as strong as Liverpool, nor is United. Spurs are close at times, and Inter just can't be trusted. And because of that, with the solidity of this Liverpool team in almost every position, the pace of their attack, which will cause problems for Barcelona, the question marks over Barcelona's attackers that aren't named Messi, and for me, Klopp being a better manager than Valverde, I see Liverpool making it through to the final once again. 3-2 Liverpool, but I don't see this as being comfortable for Liverpool at any time, really. Messi and Coutinho will cause havoc, but the back line will be prepared for it, and Alisson will be one of the big heroes of this semi-final. I expect big things. He's going to be a semi-final winner for them. Okay, guys, so the way I see it, we'll have a final between Liverpool and Ajax. But like I said at the beginning, you could make a claim for any of these teams to make the final. I could just as easily talk myself in a circle and make a case for Spurs versus Barcelona in the final, but in my own opinion, this is the final that I see. But what do you think will happen? Let me know below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and enjoy the semis. I'm Adrian. I hope to see you in a watch along. I love ya, and take care.